This is the Little Moments Count radio podcast, created in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. Each episode, you'll hear interviews with early childhood experts on how to support the important brain development that takes place in the first 1,000 days of life, just through little moments every day. Learn more at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.
It's a good day to be Indigenous.
Get up, stand up.
They are going to become more brutal.
Couldn't cut, hitting cut again.
Because all the hippies were trying to be Indians anyway.
They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power.
Hey, Victor.
We must live in balance with the earth.
And also with recent happenings at Wounded Knee.
I am awake.
Welcome to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Wakanja Hade. Hey, Kadagi to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. We discuss local, national, Native news and events, and as you know, Chujunk, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
Yes, you are right, Jaga. This segment of Native Roots Radio is presented in partnership with Little Moments Count. Little Moments Count is a statewide collaborative focused on helping parents and caregivers learn about the importance of brain development in the first 3 years of life. As always, you can visit littlemomentscount.org for more info.
Right on, and we're so excited to partner with Little Moments Count for another year here on Native Roots Radio, where we host a monthly conversation with guests focused on early childhood development in our Native communities. And Haley, today we have one of our fan favorites on.
Yes, we do. Barb Fabre is back, and Barb is the CEO of All Nations Rise and Indigenous Visioning. And Barb was on last time in November, I think. So Barb, thank you, Pinagigi, for coming back on Native Roots Radio. How have you been?
Bonjour. I've been great. Been listening to your awesome shows since I've been on last. I always learn something.
Yes, us too, and it's great to have you on again. And a lot of moving parts here in Indian country these last 48 hours, and really since the last couple of weeks. It's red alert in a lot of ways. I know for our nation, we're talking about a lot of things right away and beforehand. But how does Trump's new DEI policies affect early childhood education?
Well, I think we just took 3 steps back, to tell you the truth. But I think that regardless of the new administration's policies, there's a lot that teachers can continue to do, is to expose our children to diversity and include them, not narrowing policies so that, children from all backgrounds and incomes are allowed into programs. And it's been we just got here, it seems like, and then all of a sudden we're going backwards. But again, we can't do too much about policies other than keep voicing our concern with our legislators and continue to allow children in our classrooms to thrive.
Yeah, we're grateful too. There was an election. Now the Senate has a one vote advantage in the Democrats here in Minnesota. That just came out yesterday or early today. So they replaced the head that passed away. So now we're at 51-50. So that's good here in Minnesota. But nationally, we need to really keep vigilant on what's going on in the policy and can't really fall asleep behind the wheel. How do they foresee these changes impacting early childhood, especially education? It's something that really is, like you mentioned, it's we really have to stay vigilant. And in your view, how does exposure to diverse and inclusive environments in early childhood education help shape children in their identities and sense of belonging?
Well, not only does creating greater multicultural awareness and inclusion helps our students, with their own identity, and it prepares them for a life, a global view. When they leave school or enter into K-12, there's going to be children from all backgrounds. And typically children see that, in rural areas, we don't see as much other diversity. But when our children go into K-12 and college and go to work, in the workforce, they're going to be working alongside people from all backgrounds. We want them to be prepared and how to be respectful and how to be respected if you're a person of color. And, DEI to me is something we should all be instilling, in our own children, in our own classrooms. And it's just something that's helping children. Children who grow up with a very narrow view of the world have a really hard time in adulthood and dealing with diversity. And so I think every teacher, every preschool teacher, childcare provider knows that. And so they work really hard to ensure that all children in the classroom, are respected. They understand and respect each other. And it's just, it's called humanity, for the world.
Yeah, particularly concerning social attitudes and values that if the young ones aren't exposed to it, it's not good for the society in whole.
Right. It encourages acceptance and helps them, just helps them throughout life. And, if you don't teach that, they're going to just imagine, your child or your grandchild, being very exclusive and, a very narrow tunnel of view of the world, and all of a sudden they find themselves out into the world. So they're going to have a very challenging time. So, just about, before DEI really came a thing in the last, few years, that we all, applauded that it was finally recognized as a thing. And, but all childcare teachers and, childcare, Head Start, they include cultural awareness into their classroom. So, it's not something new for us. But we were happy to see that DEI really does, it advocates for children who may be coming from, a different background, different social status or whatever, economic status. And so I don't know, it's just, it's something that we've always done. So I hopefully don't see a whole lot changing in early childhood.
Well, hey, I want to remind everyone we're here with Barb Fabre, and she is the CEO of Indigenous Visioning and All Nations Rise. And we're talking about early childhood and the first 1,000 days, basically, of our young ones here. And we have a conversation once a month here with, Little Moments Count, and it's really important. And Barb, I don't know if you know this, before we go to the next segment, I'll let you ferment on this in the break, is that we have our grandchildren over here on Wednesday and Thursday, and they're 6 months old. And I think of a lot of our conversations as we talk to them and meet with them and play with them. So this is really timely conversation for me and a lot of people listening to the show.
Oh, this is Dallas Goldtooth, and you're listening to the Native Roots Radio. Hoka, hicha, wecha.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This segment of Native Roots Radio is presented in partnership with Little Moments Count. Nearly 80% of brain growth happens in the first 1,000 days, and small moments of interaction like talking, playing, reading, and singing help create the pathways that build a child's brain during these early stages of life. For more information, you can visit littlemomentscount.org.
Hey, we're here with Barb Fabre, CEO of Indigenous Visioning and All Nations Rise, and she's an enrolled member of White Earth Ojibwe Nation in the northwest corner of Minnesota. And we're talking a little bit about how Trump's new DEI policies affect early childhood education. And one of the questions I have is, how might the absence of accommodations for disabilities under the new policies impact educators and students in early childhood settings?
Yeah, great question. And just before we broke, you talked about your grandchildren, and they're just beautiful. I see pictures of them, and I'm expecting my sixth one, or we are expecting our sixth one in a couple of weeks. So we're super excited about that. Back to your question. Exposure to children, diversity is just going to help our children. I mean, reading books, doing any kind of, lesson plans around diversity, people with disabilities, children with disabilities. Those are going to help prepare our children. And I just can't stress that enough. I know these policies don't make sense to us adults, and they definitely don't make sense to our little ones. But we can, stay diligent in our DEI efforts that we've always done. And we just continue fighting for that diversity and inclusion and equity. But parents, in childcare providers, Head Start providers, preschool teachers, all of them, they read books, they create activities, they teach empathy. They try to bring in, exposure to children who may not be in the classroom. Just creating safe spaces for children to talk about diversity. And that's pretty much all we can do right now. It's something we've been doing for years, but, right now, I think it's just as important just to keep on and being more vigilant on that.
Yeah, maternity leave policies can significantly impact parent and child well-being. How do you see these policies affecting Indigenous families and their traditional practices regarding childbearing?
Well, to me, if DEI policies, when they came around and they're implemented in the state and federal government are trying to include more DEI, that means that more children of color are going to be able to get into schools, get into, special schools or special programs or whatever it be, and they get the scholarships. Because we're so underrepresented in those fields that, again, this just brought us 3 steps back. But we just, need to stay on course. And many of the teachers, in my experience, they, use respectful language when they're talking about policies and administration and the president and things like that. But, you absolutely have to also talk about some of the not so nice stuff that the president and policies do when age appropriate, of course. And I don't feel that we should be sugarcoating anything that comes out of this administration. I think people need to understand what the impact of taking away DEI in our systems means for people in underrepresented children and programs. So, we just, I can't stress enough to make sure and prioritize DEI in lesson plans, celebrate diversity within your home, within the classroom, with our early childhood programming, and, recognize contributions that, indigenous peoples have made to society and health and all of that.
Exactly. And we have a lieutenant governor that's
Yes.
Indigenous. We have state senators and representatives, school teachers, lawyers, and we need to accentuate those to our little ones that know that, they can be whatever they want to be.
Absolutely. And much like little moments count, the brain development is so important for, 0 to 5 that, those are the perfect years to expose our children to diversity and empathy and people with, that are different from us. And it'll last with them for the rest of their life, as long as they aren't taught something different, because children aren't born seeing colors of people. They aren't. They're taught that. They're taught racism and bigotry and all of that. So, they're fresh brains, they're brand new brains, and that 0 to 5 is so critical. So along with, brain development, we have to make sure that diversity awareness is in there.
Yeah, and it's important for the parents and caregivers, that are first thousand days, it's to see and to hear and to talk to them correctly in a good way, in a compassionate way about our differences, but also that we all put our pants on or diapers, depending on how old you are. And I guess I'm going to get close to wearing diapers again here in a few years, but, to not look down on them and join the circle and with all the people,
And we've worked so hard to get where we are, dealing with the boarding school era and what that did to us in generations. And here we are trying to get our language back and our culture back, with our kiddos. And, then you have administration that takes away some of that equity that we've built up all this time. But we can't let it get us down. We are fortunate to be in Minnesota with our governor and lieutenant governor. And, that gives me a sense of safety, that they're going to continue to make Minnesota a very diverse and welcoming state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely. And, us talking about it with you and Little Moments Count and all our guests that come on, and to stay awake and, and not be intimidated by this. And we know in 2 years, it could be a total different landscape with the Senate and the House. And he could end up being a lame duck and things. Well, I mean, the last time too, the only real law that he passed through Congress was a tax break for the billionaires. And so hopefully we sue him and keep him on his toes and fight back and talk about important things like early childhood development and not get derailed by all this BS that's coming down. So, judges are stopping things, attorney generals are stopping things, and we just gotta stay vigilant as adults for our young ones.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. And, as long as we are doing our part as parents and grandparents, and, we support our early childhood professionals to do the same, our kids will hopefully turn out just fine. And, as long as we teach it at home, and we just hope that in K-12, they continue to try to do things as well. I don't know how much DEI is going to go into the, K-12 system and what that means for them. There's a lot of unknowns with this administration, and just 2 weeks into it, we're seeing some pretty shocking stuff. So,
yeah, absolutely. We're winding up here with our monthly segment with Little Moments Counting. We're here with Barb Fabre. And Barb, how can people get a hold of you? Haley and I always talk about those Indigenous boxes and how you guys. So let our listeners out there know how we can get a hold of you, and if there's a Facebook or a website, they can see the great work that your organization does.
Sure. Indigibox is exactly what we're trying to do, is bring cultural diversity into the classroom, and not just cultural diversity, but authentic and accurate cultural diversity. And you can find me at www.indigenousvisioning.com for Indigibox. And we also have a lot of fabulous programming on our All Nations Rise website if you're interested in Indigenous parent leadership or the Indigenous FFN statewide network.
Thanks a lot for coming on, Barb, and congratulations on another grandchild coming up. We are truly blessed here, and Peeny Gigi for all the work you do, and great to see you again. If you're listening to the show, you're part of the resistance. We are the resistance experts. We're still here. We are the 7th generation.
Thanks for listening to the Little Moments Count radio podcast in partnership with community radio stations throughout Minnesota. You can find the Little Moments Count radio podcast wherever you get your podcasts and at littlemomentscount.org/podcast.